Welcome, everybody, to the Teaching and Learning Conference. My name is Andre De Leon. I'm the Educational Programs Professional for K-12 Science and Instructional Materials. It is my great pleasure to welcome a couple of friends and colleagues of mine to talk about making science accessible and available and learnable for everybody in the process. Without barriers and all the other things that we throw up in the way of science education. So with that, I'd like to please welcome Matt Grable and Erica Palis to present and talk about that.
Great, thanks, Andre. Really appreciate it. We're excited to have this opportunity to share with educators in Nevada. Erica has dropped in the slides in, and maybe I'm gonna ask her to drop the link to the slides in one more time, since a number of folks have joined since she dropped that in last. I'm going to lead this session, and Erica's going to lead the next session, so you'll get both of us for the next couple hours if you hang out with us here in the science space. So we're really quick. I know there'll be lots of people here who have very different sort of backgrounds around OpenSciEd and sort of what your knowledge is of our materials, sort of at the core of what it is, because this is not a session about that. If you want to learn more about it, actually hang out in the next session, and you'll sort of learn a little bit more about what our materials are all about. But just a real quick piece here. We're a nonprofit, and we're sort of established because it's ridiculous that teachers cannot get both high quality instructional materials and professional learning to support the work that they do in the classroom. I was a classroom teacher for more than a decade and before sort of transitioning to other work. And I always felt like I had to work past or through or around the materials that were in front of me in the classroom to get to best practice. And that's sort of what OpenSciEd was established to address that issue. And so we bring together fantastic developers who are developing these materials from scratch, designed for the NGSS. And in that process, we've also partnered with 10 states who have been involved at all stages of the work in designing and sharing and testing out these materials. We've done this with hundreds of teachers and thousands of kids across these states, and then they've been picked up and used by many, many more people beyond that field test group as they are released publicly. We are done with middle school. We are going to start releasing high school units in February, and we've just started developing K-5, so those will be coming after that. And that's only possible because we were able to get philanthropic organizations to cover the costs of development, which means that all of our materials are free and publicly available online. If Erica could maybe just drop in the link to our website if you want to find out and look for more about our materials, that'd be fantastic. And also even our professional learning materials are free, so you can go and get the materials that to lead professional learning. Those are shared, and all that stuff is free and publicly available. So just a little bit of context to know a little bit about where we're at and what we're dealing with. But really, this session is about what does it look like when you have equitable science learning happening in your classroom? Rather than me telling you what that might look like, we're going to start by kicking everybody out into have conversations with each other about this. So to prep yourself for that conversation, I'm going to give you a minute right now to just think about if you would walk into a classroom where equitable science learning is happening, what would you see and what would you hear happening in that classroom? So I'm going to give you a straight up minute to jot down as many things as you possibly can that come to mind that you would see or hear in a classroom where there's equitable science learning happening. Do that now.
I wish that I could hold to you when day is done till life is through. try so hard to be at peace, to still my mind, catch and release, from walking tall to on my knees. It's these memories and moments.
Okay, a minute flies by fast. We're going to try to get all those things down on paper. But hopefully you got at least an idea or two, and you're going to have a chance here to learn from other folks as we move this forward. And so when you get to your partner groups, there'll probably be 2 or maybe 3 people in your group. Just quickly introduce yourself, sort of the Monday Night Football version of introduce yourself. Hi, my name is John, and I teach 6th grade or something like that. And then share your ideas about what does this look like? What does it sound like when this is happening in the classroom? And then the second thing I'd like you to really do here is to jot down an idea that somebody else says that resonates with you. And I'm going to ask you to share those ideas when we get back. So the directions, in case you forget them, are in the chat, so you can reference that once you get out to your room. And we're going to kick you out to those rooms now to do that. Are there any questions? Can't see everybody, but you can drop them in the chat if you have questions. Okay, not seeing anything right away. It's not a whole lot of wait time. Erica, you ready to kick them out? All right, we'll see you in a minute, maybe 2, 3 minutes. We'll give you 3 minutes.
All right, looks like everybody is matriculating out. Well, you guys are pros at this, aren't you? Maybe you should start like a company where you talk about this stuff and, maybe provide some resources that could be used in the classroom.
Okay, now that everybody is back, I know there's still some people popping in who weren't here at the beginning, but we'll keep rolling forward. For those that weren't here, what I would like you to do now, hopefully you have jotted down at least one idea that you heard from somebody else that was about what do you see and hear in equitable science classrooms? What would they sound like, and what would you see? If you would type one of those ideas, but don't hit enter yet into the chat. So just type the idea into the chat box, but don't hit enter until I say go. We're going to fill up that chat box with ideas about what equitable science learning looks like and sounds like in science classrooms. So take a quick second to type that into the chat, and then wait for the signal to hit enter. Hopefully you have those ideas close to being in. If you don't have it right away, you can hit enter once you get it in. But if you've got it in, go ahead and hit enter. Let's fill that up. Holy cow. All right. All students hands-on and engaged, collaborating. Students are on task, hands-on activities. Everyone is participating in different ways, but there's a balance of conversations to collaboration from Laura. Claudine says hands-on activities. Travis said everybody is involved. Crystal added multiple ways to show evidence of learning. Great. Denise, differentiated activities, student discourse and engagement. A lot of fantastic ideas here, folks. Chris added safe space environment to share ideas regardless if they're right or wrong. Mistakes are okay. In fact, we know in science that if we don't make mistakes, we're probably not learning anything. This is fantastic. Lots of great ideas here, folks. And if you get time, you should scroll back up through that and see all those ideas from folks that they're sharing in that space. And that all those thoughts and ideas align well with sort of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited that we're in a similar place, but we're also going to dig in a little bit deeper. One of our goals here at OpenSciEd is to support an equity vision in science instruction in which all students are known, heard, and supported with access and opportunities for learning. To get into that today, we're going to sort of have an experience together, and then we're going to talk about some of the features that are embedded throughout our program that I think, whether or not you use our program, they can be pulled out and utilized in your own classroom. We're going to first look at, like, what does this look like in the classroom? Because we can talk about all this stuff in the abstract, but if we don't sort of have a concrete thing to understand what this looks like, it's hard to have conversations about it, even if those conversations are virtual, as they are here today. So we're going to dip into a classroom that is teaching one of our units. So it's the Forces at a Distance unit, which is in our 8th grade part of our program. Just to say a little bit of context of what's happening in the classroom around this clip, so we can then think about the equitable features that are happening in this classroom. Before they're going to be what you're going to see in the clip, they will have experienced an anchor phenomenon together. So this unit is about forces acting on at a distance, so not in contact, but at a distance. And they've experienced, in this case, the anchoring phenomena is watching a video of a speaker vibrating. And they recognize sort of in the actions of what's happening there that there are parts of that speaker that aren't touching each other, but they seem to be acting on each other. And they will have already dissected a speaker and sort of cut it apart so they know what the parts are and the pieces inside of it. They have built a basic speaker sort of out of batteries and coils of wire and a cup. In that sense, so they've done that already, and they have also individually built out their own model with words and diagrams and labels about how they think that speaker works. So all that stuff will have already happened in the classroom prior to the conversation that we're going to see here in just a minute. In the video itself, what we're doing is the students are having an initial class consensus model discussion. So they're taking their individual models about what they think they're happening, and then they're bringing them together and talking about them with each other. And so we're trying to document in this conversation what students agree on and what they have competing ideas about. So that includes, like, what's important in the speaker system? What are these important parts? What do we all sort of say are the important parts? And what are we not sure if it's important or not? And then also, how do those pieces and parts of that speaker work together to make that speaker to vibrate? And what I'm going to ask you to do then is to reflect on this video as you're watching it and take some notes about the features of classroom culture that support equitable sense making within the video. So we're going to drop a link in the chat. Erica did it already because she's amazing. And that link will make it so that you have to pull up it'll make it so you pull up your own copy of this document so you can type in it and take notes around it. The access was denied. Let me check on that right now. Try that again. It doesn't work. Are other folks having that same issue with access? Okay, perfect. And if for some reason it doesn't make you copy it or whatever, just make a copy. If you don't have edit rights, you just have to make a copy of that document and then you can edit it on your own. So just get that pulled up somewhere on the screen so that you can hold on to it. You'll need that in a little bit to jot down notes. You can either look at what's there and write things down, or you can type directly into the document. Basically, by now you should have a number in front of your name, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. Eric has added that to your name. And what you're going to do is you're going to attend to just that row in the table. And so if you're a number one, you're only going to pay attention to feature number one about who is engaged in the classroom activity. So there's some descriptions there on that table. You can read through those bullets. That's what you're looking for in the video. And you'll jot down any notes about times when you see that happening in the video. If you've got a number two in front of your name, then you're looking for who is treated as the knower. And so take a minute and read through what's beside in that second row about the description of who is treated as the knower in the classroom. Likewise, the same for 3 and for 4. So you're not trying to attend to all 4 of these things at the same time during the video. You're just trying to pay attention to your particular row. If you notice other things, that's cool. You can jot those down as well, but you're really just focusing on that one row. And then we're going to put you in a group after the video, and you'll have a chance to share with other people. So you'll learn from the people that are experts in other areas. If you have questions about that process, just dump them into the chat and we'll try to get them answered for you. Your number should be on your name, on your Zoom name, on your little square. Should be in front of your name. If you're not named yet, Erica will name you shortly. Couple of things to remember just as we're watching a video of teachers that I think that are important, because it's easy to slip into a deficit mindset when we're watching these sorts of videos. Make sure that we remember this is a real classroom. This is not a fancy setup or anything like that. This is just a real teacher in their classroom, one period out of their day. It's from the field test, so they've had professional learning and support, but it's the first time they're really teaching this unit in the classroom. So bear all that in mind in the context. Remember, of course, that teaching and classrooms that we're going to see are complex. None of those things are simple and easy. And we don't know anything about really the history of these students and their history of working together and teaching and learning together. Another thing that is a guideline here for watching videos of teaching is to always try to presume positive intentions and expertise on the part of the teacher. They may not be perfect at all times during this video, but what we're looking for is that we're presuming positive intentions and expertise, and assuming that what the kids are saying makes sense to them. A lot of this is really just about maintaining a deficit mindset. Oh, the slides are not on your end. Look at that, they're not advancing. Ha! Thank you for the people telling me about that. Awesome. So Celerina, they've got that 4 right in front of your name. That's your number. Okay, sorry. Back to the slides. Assume that the kids what they're saying makes sense to them, and then also focus on what we're asking you to do is focus on the interactions here that are serving the lesson goals and supporting equitable sense making, and don't get sort of distracted by things that might not be exactly the way that you would do that. You also notice that some of the kids, their faces might be blurred. That's just because they didn't sign permission forms or didn't get the signed permission forms back in time in order to do that. So what we're going to do here is you can take notes either on your paper or in the Google Doc that you pulled up, just in your row as we watch this video. So if you're 1, pay attention to 1, 2, pay attention to 2, 3, and so forth. So here we go. We're going to watch this video and pay attention to what's happening in the classroom.
All right, let's put a thumb up. If you think that the connection, the fields that Maribel and Garvey are talking about, if you think that's related to the force that's causing the vibrations, you're going to do a thumbs up. If you think it's probably not related to the force, you're going to do a thumbs down. You can do somewhere in the middle.
What do you mean?
What are you thinking?
What do you mean by
Like just around.
Do you think
What do we mean by force?
What do you mean by the field?
And what do you mean by the fields? We got to see more about that. What do we mean?
I guess like around it, or like in a particular spot, space to it.
Yeah.
So
It's around like where it can hit,
Like the middle.
where what can it?
like the force or the?
The magnets create the sound because it couldn't be like right directly on the coil.
Couldn't be directly on the coil because it's not touching.
No.
So maybe there's some space in between. Have you ever noticed a field when dealing with magnets or electricity? Have you ever noticed not quite touching something, but feeling the effect of electricity or magnetism?
When you, I don't know if y'all tried it, but when you flip one and you can't really put them together and you try, you can feel it like slip off.
Give me a thumbs up if you try that. Having magnets and turning one around the other way. And you can't push them together.
Yeah, I tried that.
And then you can put them on the table and then just do this and they'll like push away. You don't even have to touch them, you just do it.
And so is that what you guys are talking about when you say the field? So there's something that's going on in the space between that we can't see. And that's what you mean by field. What do you people think now? Anthony?
I don't think that because if that was true, wouldn't it pull away from the coil?
So, okay, so you're saying so maybe that's gonna push it the opposite way. So you're saying that you would feel that in the magnets? Say more about what you're saying.
Like instead of just so you have the magnet in your hand. The coil, you're putting the coil. Wouldn't it push away if it was like what they just said?
What do you guys think?
No.
Did you have felt that in your hands?
So then, why if it's not magnetic, why is it connected?
Why is it what?
If it's not magnetic, then what's the point of saying that east and like there's two sides, the one that connects and the one that doesn't. Why connect?
Barney, raise your hand. What do you think?
I think that like it still has a force. Like when you flip it, it's like a force, but it's like a negative force.
What do you mean?
Like a negative. I don't know. It's like the opposite of like. It's like when you flip it like when it pulls like away, it's like a negative thing.
Okay. So like we're saying like a pushing force.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Joshua?
We have a question. When you said what you said, do you mean like if the coil isn't magnetic, what would the magnet have anything to do with it? Is that what you meant? Yeah, then I agree because if the coil isn't really magnetic, then the magnet can't do anything but just sit there.
I mean, it does do something. It makes it work.
Speak louder so we can all hear.
I mean, it does do something. It makes it like louder, I guess, or it makes it work. It makes it run.
But the coil, yeah, but you can't. You could say it doesn't. You could say it has something to do with it, but you can't really say it's like the main cause because we basically just agreed that the coil isn't magnetic, and you didn't respond to that. And what I'm thinking is that the magnet isn't the main thing that's making the sound. Like the wires are important, but nobody's saying that that's the main thing. Well, it has something to do with it, but not everybody's focused on the magnet. So, like what I'm saying is that the magnet is necessary, but it's not the most important thing.
But I mean, without the magnet,
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is that it's not the main thing that we should focus. Like, it's not the most important piece, but it's still necessary. Like the wires are necessary, but we're not focused on that the way we are on the magnet.
Can you guys speak up a little bit? I think you're having a good discussion. I want us to be able to hear. What's your question, Gardy?
So what is the most important?
I don't know. It could be. I think it is the one. Because
It could be the coil.
Because without the wire, it's probably the wires.
Let's hear from Markel. He's had his hand up a little bit.
I feel like that, in my opinion, like everything has like its important role to like the wires brings like the electricity to the iPad or the source or whatever.
Actually, I think I more agree with Markel. I think everything, there's not like one most important thing. I think everything's sort of equal because without like the coil, the speaker wouldn't work. And without the magnet, the speaker wouldn't work. So everything is everything relies on each other.
I agree because the wires kind of have to, like, they attach to the source, and the magnet kind of, without the magnet can't really hear any sounds, and so that's why I need like everything.
Well, I'll tell you what. It sounds like we've got some good ideas. It sounds like we've got some agreement on certain things. It sounds like we're disagreeing on certain things, and we need to investigate more. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to finish up today with, and then what we'll do tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to get all these questions out. I want to figure out where are our questions, what can we do to answer the questions? So like, what can we investigate?
Helps to unmute yourself.
For just
I know there's a lot of-
$67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software.
Sorry, at least it's in my ear. Probably in yours too. So again, discussing what you noticed, again, keeping yourself in an asset-based mindset, thinking about what are the things that did push in the right direction here. We're gonna share a Jamboard link in the chat. Or if you're in the slides, you can click on it directly. And what you're going to do is sort of, you'll be in a room with a 1, a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and you're going to share what you saw, what was the evidence for your row specifically. So I'm going to go to that Jamboard and just show you what you'll do in that space. So if you're sharing about row number 1, then you'll just add a sticky note about that idea here. So you click on this little sticky note in the corner, you type in the information, you hit save. Now there'll be several people working at this at the same time. And so you have to click and then drag those sticky notes out of that location in order to add another one. Or if yours disappears, that's where it went, to somebody else's just went over the top of it. So when the person is sharing about row number 1, if the other people that are in the group can help make sure that you're recording their ideas about the evidence they saw related to who is engaged in the classroom activity, in that first space, and then as you sort of go through the group, you can share your ideas with each other and make sure they all get captured here on the Jamboard so we can see each other's ideas as well. And so Erica is going to send you out in just a minute to be in those groups with 1 through 4. If you have any questions about what your task is, just dump those in the chat real quick. Otherwise, we're going to send you out to those groups for about 10 minutes so you have a chance to get through all 4 rows of that chart. So they're valued in that sense. Thank you for starting the recording again. Not as many sort of things on 3, but the kids that had a lot of background knowledge seem to have more to share. That's definitely true. The teacher valued students' thoughts, and they were able to bring in their own experiences. And so they had different ways of thinking and talking about that. And a number of people sort of highlighted the fact that they were student driven on 4. So great. Folks are really starting to get an idea of what those strategies look like in the classroom, and coming up with ideas of where they see that in the video. We're going to run through a couple of other things relatively quickly. I know we're running short on time here, but you guys also all have the slide deck and can hit these in more depth later. We're going to look at some additional instructional strategies that are embedded in our materials, but you don't have to use our materials to use these strategies. And we're going to drop a link into the teacher handbook, or if you've got the slides, you can just pull the link out of the slides or click on it. The teacher handbook goes into these strategies in more depth than we're going to have time to today. We're going to just really quickly talk about some of these strategies, look at least some pictures of what this strategy looks like in action, and think about how it aligns to these 4 features that we've just been thinking about. One of the things that I think people are probably do pretty regularly, but is an important part of having an equitable science classroom, is establishing classroom norms or agreements, and then not only just establishing these, but revisiting them throughout the learning process. So this is important for students because students then feel like they belong and it's a safe place to participate. It supports safe and equitable student participation in this collaborative sense-making stuff, because man, that's not what kids usually do in the classroom. And so you need to have some guidelines to how you're going to interact with each other. Oftentimes these are most effectively done when they're created collectively as a community. But in our materials, we also provide a starting point. So we pulled together from the research base some pretty common norms or agreements that work well in supporting this space. Teachers can use them as a starting point and then sort of riff off of them in their collaboration with, and Eric linked in the document there that describes our sort of norms or agreements from the beginning. In practice, that the 4 pieces here that are in our starting spot are about it being respectful or equitable, committed, that everybody in this group is committed to the community, and that we work together in a way that moves our science thinking forward. Sometimes you can, like, one of the ways that teachers sometimes generate these on their own are to keep those categories, but then have the kids actually generate what the bullet points are, or you can start with the bullet points and see what else happens. So there's a lot of different ways, when it's your own classroom, your own space, a lot of different ways for that to happen. But we want to make sure there's the structure and support. I am going to skip this video because we're running a little short on time, but it's embedded. It's just a quick little clip of the same teacher, Chris, who's valuing the response of a kid who isn't sure that he wants to share the question that he has. So it's just an example of what that can really look in the classroom. And doing that, of course, is really important, especially here on engagement and who is treated as a knower. If you do those things well, it values what the kids are bringing to the classroom and can help sort of make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be a part of that conversation. And that is an important part, I think, of when you can do this in pair with high quality instructional materials, is that we build in scaffolds in the materials so that you not only have this framework for introducing them or establishing them at the beginning, but there's also touch points where you keep revisiting those intentionally throughout the program. Of course, also as a classroom teacher, doing this stuff well just means that you have to be able to do some of that stuff on the fly to make sure that it's a classroom that's safe for all kids to contribute to. Another way that we that you can do this in your classroom with kids is this idea of a driving question board. It's pretty central to what we do in OpenSciEd. All our materials are really driven by the kids' questions. We're able to do that and still have materials and lessons built out by the fact that we've had these in front of thousands of kids. We basically know what questions kids ask, and that's what leads the learning forward in our materials. But you don't have to use our materials to do your driving question board. This is really just about a way that you're pulling out kids' ideas and thoughts and questions about what's happening in an anchoring phenomenon. And then it also gives you a way to keep track of what are those things you answered and what other things do we still need to answer, and it can drive learning forward throughout our units. And one of the things we want to tie back here, like, this isn't just a whim, it's stuff that is firmly rooted in the research base around what works around project-based science. Moving forward, my transitions are being silly. Okay. So this is part of just how this fits in our instructional model. We have an anchoring phenomenon routine, which we've talked about a little bit, really the kids experience a phenomena. And then after sort of mucking around with that a little bit, you're doing this driving question board piece right here. So this kicks off all the rest of the learning in our units. And sort of then it's those questions from the kids that build the learning moving forward. And from the kids' perspective, rather than learning about what's on the next page in the book, or I'm learning this because my teacher says it's important, or I'll need this later, it's I'm learning this because I'm trying to figure out the answers to the questions that we came up with as a class. And just some quick examples of what this looks like in teachers' classrooms. Everybody has a different classroom in a different space. and different ideas about exactly how to make that their own. So you can see in this case, like models, and then we're asking questions about that as it moves forward. And you can also do this in Jamboard or in a digital space as well, if to keep track of it. We've seen this one already. Scientist circle. This is what Chris was doing in his classroom. And it's a central role here in student sense making. It's really important here that the kids are actually physically arranged in a different way, so that there's a different physical arrangement in the classroom. The kids are facing each other and interacting with each other. And we're scaffolding these discussions so that students can listen closely to one another. The teacher is there and they're clarifying and challenging and improving the group's thinking, but it's really about this, trying to foster these interactions between kids and value the contributions from those kids as they're contributing to the conversation. And then you can set up an environment there where it becomes a safe place for kids to take risks. If you pop back and watch that video earlier in the slide deck about Chris and how he supports this kid who doesn't want to share his ideas, eventually kids, I mean, this is not what the system has taught them that is safe. Like, it's the only way, the time it's safe is when you have the right answer and you can say that already and you're confident of that. And instead, like we want to be in science, we have to get our ideas out on the table. This is important not only for science and how science works, it's also important for kids to feel like that's a safe place for them to do. So you've seen that in practice. And again, these are interrelated, right? You have to have some agreements or norms about how you're going to participate in that space to make it happen. And in our materials, it's used strategically at key sense-making moments so that kids are, when they're sharing their initial ideas, they're building understanding and they're reaching consensus. Another sort of feature that we utilize in the program is self-documentation. So this is basically, it's a formative assessment strategy that sort of surfaces what is happening in the kids' lives related to what's happening in the learning. And it's designed to intentionally connect the student lives and communities with the learning. And there's some links to some STEM teaching tools here that this is based on. The example here is in the ecosystem dynamics unit, which is about kids have learned about the fact, before you do this, kids will have learned about how palm oil plantations impact the populations of orangutans, and then and how there's a difference there between the number of species from being a very diverse, biodiverse forest to being a monoculture in those palm oil plantations. And so what you're doing here is just asking kids to go home and take pictures or draw places where there either are lots of plants, lots of different kinds of plants, or no plants at all. And then they bring that into the conversation. And you ask them to share those ideas with each other. Like, how does this, it's a part of this routine where we then think about, are there any phenomena that are in your life that are like this, that we're learning about in the classroom? So it's another way that you can do that with kids, is to just figure out ways that they can actually capture their own existence outside of the classroom and bring it into the conversation related to the learning. So sort of rapid fire that last little bit to catch up here. There's a lot of stuff that's there at the bottom of this. What we're really trying to do is, we know that the potential of this type of learning is particularly important for students of color, students who speak first languages other than English, and students from low-income communities who, even though you've had lots of ways of reform, have still had limited access to high-quality, meaningful science learning opportunities. And that's what sort of we're trying to design into the materials, but these strategies don't have to only live in our materials. They can come in a lot of different places. So we do not really have time for questions, but you can dump them in the chat. And Erica and I are hanging out for the next session that Erica is going to lead. So if people want to hang out here in between, you can dump questions in the chat, and we'll try to help support and answer those between now and then.